All right, Stephen, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you for participating in the giveaway. And as promised, I will go through the three lifts that you sent me of your Snatch. Um, so what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through the mistakes that I see happening at your maximal weights that you sent me. We're going to go through what I see happening and what causes you to miss the final lift. After that, we're going to go through some training recommendations that I think you should be implementing after this, that will hopefully lead you to a better snatch. So first of all, leading out, I just want to say that I think your snatch looks pretty good, man. At sub-maximal weights, like this one is compared to the two next ones, you're finding a good solid starting position, pushing yourself off the floor, keeping the bar close all the way through, extending the hips and knees simultaneously, catching the bar ahead in a good balanced position, and standing up. So in this lift, looks pretty solid, not much to say here. When the weights get a bit heavier, that is when some of the problems gets to the surface. So you see this one a little bit heavier. As soon as the weights break off the ground, you see that your hips are extending at a faster rate than your shoulders. This will lead you to extend your knees sooner than your hips, which will ultimately cause you to swing the bar out in a circular path, landing overhead. You're going to control it pretty good in this one, landing with balanced over position again, but especially on the final lift that you sent me, where it is the heaviest weight, you can see it that is much more pronounced here. So again, finding good setup. As soon as the weight breaks off the floor, your hips rise at a faster rate than your shoulders. You can see above your knees are almost completely straight. Your hips are almost completely bent, which will result in your hips shooting forward, circular bar path around, swinging it. You can see there's plenty height to catch it, but as a result of the swing, it's gonna fall behind you and you're gonna miss the lift. So this is a video of me. What I want you to focus on is that when I find my starting position, just as you're finding a good starting position, I want you to focus on noticing how I'm leading with the chest. When the weights are breaking off the ground, I'm keeping my chest. I'm using my legs and my quads to push myself away from the floor. When I get to my hip position, you can see that my knees are still slightly bent as a result of the first two things. My hips are slightly bent, and most importantly, they extend at the same time. This is very key because if one of those two elements is extending in a staggered time format, you're going to cause an outswing or a backswing of the bar. So knees and hips has to extend at a simultaneous rate. So training recommendations going forward, um, you seem to be overly reliant on your back to create height in the snatch. So what I recommend is that you use some time to increase your leg strength through some heavy squatting, ideally instead of front squatting, so we can target those quads and get them a bit stronger. I want you to increase your overhead squat numbers while emphasizing a vertical torso while squatting. So what you see happening here on the final lift is that when you're in the bottom position, you have secured your lockout. When you're about to squat out of the hole, you can see that your chest is tilting forward, your hips are rising to shift the weight away from the quads, and this will leave you with a sensation of falling forward instead. So when you're doing your overhead squat, I just want you to focus on keeping a completely straight upper body, just as you have here. Just keep that position, use those legs to push yourself off the floor all the way up. And the final thing that I want you to work on is I want you to practice the technique of the pull through snatch pulls, snatch deadlift, etc. Things where you're not limited by technique, but where you can really focus on hitting the right positions. I want you to focus on the initial cues that I used over here. So leading with the chest, I want you to think about pushing yourself off the ground using your legs. And finally, and most importantly, I want you to practice extending your knees at your hips at a simultaneous rate. If one of those 2 points are out of sync, you will get an outgoing swing off the bar. I hope this helps. Again, thank you. Um, We'll be in contact shortly.